Lawmakers in Albany wrapped up the year without a deal to raise lawmaker pay. They haven't had a pay hike since 1999. Governor Andrew Cuomo has been haggling with those lawmakers. He wanted to negotiate the raise in exchange for tackling some issues that Cuomo wanted addressed, like ethics. The stalemate could affect Cuomo's, stop snickering when I say ethics, Cuomo's agenda moving forward. Here's how the Wall Street Journal describes the situation. Quote, with the 2017 session starting January 4th, the bad blood may make it harder for Mr. Cuomo to negotiate an ambitious agenda that's expected to include tougher anti-corruption laws, an expansion of ride-sharing services, and measures to counter a new Republican president. Dominic, am I right in getting a sense that legislators in Albany are a little less patient with Andrew Cuomo than they've been in the past, and maybe that's the politest possible way of putting it?
That was pretty good. That's pretty good. I like that. But the public, based on the Quinnipiac poll, correct me if I'm wrong, Bill, they're on the governor's side in this. You want a pay raise, ethics reform. What's wrong with that?
With trading, with doing
yes.
the two in
yeah,
quid pro quo?
What they trade on everything else. So I know that the leaders are, there was an apparent deal in place, but I believe the Senate Majority Leader couldn't deliver the caucus enough votes. But Albany, I'm trying not to use the word crook. See, Congressman, I think
you just did.
I just did? Yeah. Okay, so if I already used the word, if I already used it, then I might as well go to where I want to go. They're making, what, $79,000 a year. Their counterparts in New York City make, what, $116,000, roughly, give or take. Okay, they need a pay raise. But it's real simple. You get your pay raise with ethics reform.
But I'm trying not to use the word Brodsky. Okay. But if he were here, he would be saying, you can't hold it hostage. You can't do one for the other. Like, you got to vote independently on.
Ask you a question,
that was my
Mr.
Brodsky
Whitman.
impression, by the way.
It wasn't too good.
No.
I want to ask you a question. Don't they barter and exchange on every single issue in Albany?
They do.
So why must it be different when the legislature, I'm not going to say broad brush and say are all crooks, but several of them are in jail. So why do we have to deal with pay raise straight up, and that's the only
But
issue?
isn't that the ultimate gun to the head? Do what I want or you're not getting any more money?
Most people, before they get a pay raise, they have to go through with an evaluation with their bosses.
For the work they've already done, not the work they're going to do.
Okay, bottom line is, I'm not down with just giving them a blanket pay raise. Most people work for under $79,000 a year, and my final point on this, if you don't like the job, and if it's so bad,
fair,
don't run.
Fair. Bill, what about the notion that Cuomo is facing a rockier legislature than he has in the past, that maybe he doesn't command the same sort of allegiance or support? There were rumors that lawmakers were going to boycott his State of the State address, so he's taking a show on the road and he's doing like 6 regional State of the State addresses.
Yeah, in part, the longer you're in office, the more people can imagine the world without you. And they start to know that you're not going to be there at some point. So he's entering into the early stages of potential lame duck territory, where people don't jump, it's not how high every time he says jump. That said, the governor has a lot of powers. The governor is the biggest of the 3 men in the room, and so I suspect that they'll bring it back together at some point. But I have to take issue with the term ethics reform. This governor's been passing ethics reform for going on 6-7 years, and this is a guy who's taking money from everything. His contractors. $50 million in donations, and this one gets this and this one gets that. I mean, you can call what he wants is a package where there's publicly financed campaigns. That's what he's looking at, because the unions want that. And he labels it as ethics reform, and people write ethics reforms in the stories just because he calls it that. It's nonsense. It's nonsense what he's pushing. He's got problems with people within his administration that are under indictment, and so he's trying to protect himself by suggesting that he's the ethics reform governor. It's absurd. It's just ridiculous.
And Dominic, how much more difficult will it be for Cuomo to push the agenda he wants and also to position himself as a potential 2020 presidential candidate if he winds up with more of a roadblock from the Capitol building?
I don't really see the roadblock coming into place. Bill makes an excellent point. The longer you have been in office, the less folks are afraid of you. And Cuomo, let's be honest, he runs Albany, or he did run Albany with an iron fist and sort of like the powers of his father, like kind of pulled back. But Cuomo, folks know, he was the strong man for his father. Cuomo was no joke, all right? He knows every secret in Albany. And so, you know, there's going to be a balance. It may be a little harder, to Bill's point, in terms of, and yes, you got the feds involved with this. So the governor's looking for some cover as he positions for first, and we've been down this road before, Hillary Clinton, I'm running for re-election to U.S. Senate, and then months later, catapulting to the Democratic nomination for president.
Very
So-
quickly,
Again,
Congressman.
there doesn't appear to be a disagreement on the principle of ethics, of righteous and legitimate ethics reform, not the kind Bill says is going on here, and an increase in the pay of the legislatures, if both are deserved. So it's not the objection to that package. It's it's the objection to what you consider not to be ethics reform.
I mean, I think we need better people in office in New York, frankly. I mean, that to me is the greatest ethics reform that you could have.
And one way to get people of better quality, so to speak, to run is making it so they don't have to have a vow of poverty, especially if they have a family
and they need 1999. I mean, it's been a
so
long
they
time.
need a pay raise if they're going to take on this job as a citizen
I gotta leave
and
it
not
there.
as a full-time obligation.
Gentlemen, thank you all very much for the very insightful conversation. Not so fast, Bill. Don't go anywhere. We'll say goodbye to the Congressman and to Dominic. Bill is sticking around to be a punching bag for me because in the next segment, we're going to focus on Westchester County. The deadline is approaching for the Westchester to satisfy the federal government housing settlement that has dragged on for years. Will the county make it? And is there more to the story? Stay with us.